Great. Hello, everybody. Thank you all for joining. Um, we'll wait probably another two-ish minutes as everybody settles in, and then we will go ahead and get started. Yeah, and for the people who just joined, thank you guys so much for coming. We're just going to wait another minute-ish or so to get everybody settled in, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Alrighty, I think we can go ahead and get started. This session is also being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube after this as well. So feel free to reference back to it, send it to your friends who weren't able to make it, etc. Um, but yeah, thank you guys so much for coming. This is the Italy info session with International Academic Programs, or IAP. We'll be going through both general information as well as diving into the programs on the screen. And a brief note that the School of Business and CALS, College of Agricultural and Life Sciences, also have programs in Italy. We will not be covering them in the presentation today, but do know that they exist. We will just be covering the programs housed in IEP, or again, international academic programs. And to briefly introduce ourselves, hi everyone, my name is Ariel. I'm a study abroad exploration advisor with IEP. So I work with students who are in the initial stages of the study abroad process, not necessarily narrowed down to a program yet, still just understanding the broad scope of things. I did graduate from UW-Madison in 2024, and I studied abroad in Florence on one of the programs that we'll talk about today.
Hi everyone, my name is Ella Quinn. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a study abroad enrollment manager and I advise on the programs that we'll be talking about today. I mainly answer questions about the application process and the course equivalent process, as well as some academic things. And I studied abroad in Florence, Italy as a student for the semester.
Ciao, everybody. I'm Ramona Washington, a study abroad advisor. I advise on a lot of the programs we're going to be talking about today, and the areas I focus on are typically the general study abroad experience, housing, some academics, health and safety, and things along the way. I studied abroad and I did a semester program in Paris and a summer program in Morocco.
Hi, everyone, and I'm Emily Warnke. I am also a study abroad advisor and program manager, use she, her pronouns. I studied abroad in Ireland when I was a college student, and for the purposes of this presentation, I work with the CIEE Rome program, and I also advise on areas like general experience, housing, health and safety, and things like that.
Awesome. So I believe this is my slide here. So just kind of starting general overview of program things. Program structures. All of our programs fall into three broad program structure categories. For the purpose of today, all of these are represented, and some programs kind of mix and match between multiple of them. But just to give a general overview, and all of this information is on our website as well, should you like to read more about it. UW signature programs, like UW and Florence, those are created by UW-Madison students, just for UW-Madison students. So for UW in Florence for next spring semester, let's say, a UW-Madison professor will go along with the program. They will offer courses that you will take as well as, so you will take those courses and then you will also be taking courses from a provider, which is another one of our structures. A provider is essentially a study abroad organization that we work with. They're the ones who they work with local professors, so you're still taking courses from professors at the provider's study center in whichever city. And you providers is a mix of students, both from UW-Madison as well as study abroad students from other US universities. And then exchange programs, or you might hear direct enroll as well. Those are programs that take place on a physical university campus. You're essentially like an international student on another university campus. And these have typically the most immersion because your classmates are all students from like our local students attending that university. Yeah, that certainly can be a lot. You're not expected to know exactly which one you want to do at this point, but just knowing that these programs are going to look different from each other is a helpful place to start.
All right, so academics abroad. On all of our approved programs, it's really easy to make progress on your degree while studying abroad, as you'll earn in residence UW-Madison credit on your program. All grades and credit earned on your program will apply towards your UW-Madison GPA, and it even may be possible to earn honors credit while on the program, depending on the program. Each course you take abroad will have a UW-Madison course equivalent that will be posted to your transcript once your program ends. We always encourage you to meet with your academic advisor if you're interested in studying abroad and when choosing course equivalents for your program. And then I invite you to check out the QR code in the bottom right. It takes you to our major advising pages. Check out the page for your major and review information, including questions to ask your academic advisor, when a good time to study abroad for your major may be, and even some suggested programs. And then next slide. All right, so this image is a picture of the program page on our website. Under the academics area, you'll find lots of helpful information about a study abroad program. In this example, you can review how many credits you can take on the program, the provider's website, which may include syllabi and even course offerings, if an internship experience is offered, and then at the bottom, the pre-approved UW-Madison course equivalents for the program. Next slide.
Okay, jumping into some of the more specific program information. This is one of the programs that I advise for, the Bologna Consortial Studies Program, BCSP. Um, this program, so a fun fact about the University of Bologna is that it was founded in 1088, super old, making it one of the oldest universities in the world. And Dante, Petrarch, and Copernicus all studied there. What is a consortium? A consortium is basically a group of universities, in this context at least. A consortium is a group of universities who have banded together and to an agreement to offer a program to its students. These universities really take a lot of ownership over the academic structure of the program and the general structure of the program. Indiana University for this particular consortium is the lead university. So if you were to apply to this program, as part of your process, you would have some interactions within the staff at Indiana University. But as the lead university, they do a lot, even more of a heavier lift of the administrative part of the program. So it's a consortium program amongst several universities, US universities, that offer this program in Bologna. It's sort of a hybrid between a signature and a direct enroll program. And so we talked a little bit earlier, Ariel talked about like what the difference is between that, what that actually means. And so this is a little bit of a hybrid. Again, we have a big influence on the structure of the program, but with this program, you're also going to be directly enrolling at a local university, the University of Bologna. So you can apply for the program for various terms, a semester, an academic year. You can see what the eligibility requirements are there. The unique thing about this program is that it sort of has two different tracks. You can do, if you have a high level of Italian, 4 semesters or above, you can really get a lot of Italian exposure. You can directly enroll in classes at the University of Bologna and take your classes in Italian. So students on this program take classes, a few classes through the consortium. So with faculty hired by the consortium universities at the consortium office. And then you also take classes at the University of Bologna. And that's regardless of the track that you're going to be doing, whether it's the English track or the Italian track. The Italian track, you're taking all of your classes in Italian. The English track, you're taking like an Italian language and culture class, a low-level Italian language and culture class with the consortium, and then you're selecting from a wide variety of classes in English at the University of Bologna. And you can see they offer a really, it's a very large university. The city is known as sort of as a college town. And so you can take classes in all these different areas, a wide variety of subject areas. Housing for this program is with assistance from the consortium. They really kind of guide you when you arrive. You stay in a hotel for a few days, but part of your process early on is selecting your housing options from a menu of options through the consortium. And so they offer a lot of assistance in that. But you're living in furnished apartments, and also with other students who are on the program or studying at the University of Bologna. Next slide, please. Milan, IES Milan. So this is an example of a provider program. So again, like Ariel mentioned, a US-based study abroad organization or company that puts on this program, and we in turn partner with IES. And so it's a provider-based program. That means have a lot of on-site support throughout the structured program. You can also take this program through fall, spring, and for a full year if you wanted to. A fun fact about this picture here on the slide is that this Duomo took almost 600 years to build, interestingly enough, which is really wild to think about. And while the city is large, it is the second largest city in Italy, second to Rome. So it's considered the fashion and economic capital of Italy. Fashion, not surprising. You can also see the eligibility requirements here for this program. And Italian is required for this program, but you also take all of your classes in English after that. So Italian's required. Above and beyond that, all of your classes are in English. You can see that this program also offers a wide variety of subject areas for classes. We have a couple of different tracks for this program. One is called Italy Today. It's a very general track with, again, a wide variety of classes that you take, but there's also a fashion design and merchandising track. Again, Milan, not surprising, being the fashion capital of the world, I think, definitely of Italy. So you can also take a fashion and design track as well. Housing for this program, you have a couple of options. So housing is a component of study abroad that definitely changes depending on the program that you're looking at. And there's usually one or several options that you can have for a program. So you can see that you have a few options for this program. Apartment stays, you can stay with the local host, like a homestay if you're interested in that. And they also have residence halls. And so another unique component of this program is that it's a little bit like how I described Bologna, where you can take classes through the provider, and then you can also take some classes at a local university. And this IES partners with multiple universities, local universities. So depending on your concentration, it could be communication, psychology. They have several different local universities where you can take your classes in addition to the classes that you take through their study center in Milan. Next slide, please.
All right, so on to CIEE Rome. This is another provider program, so similar to IES, like Ramona just talked about. You're getting some additional assistance from CIEE through various parts of the process. And this program is offered in the fall, spring, academic year, or the summer. And something a little bit unique about this program is that it's kind of set up in these 6-week blocks or cycles. And so you're typically taking 2 courses per block. In general, sometimes that varies a bit. And each block you're kind of switching. So I don't want to bore you with too many details at this stage, but typically in the fall and the spring, students will do either 2 or 3 blocks, which would mean a 12-week program or an 18-week program. And then in the summertime, you can do either 1 block or 2 blocks, so a 6-week program or a 12-week program. So you can kind of customize that based on what works best for you. As far as the eligibility, it's just a 2.5 cumulative GPA, and it is available from freshman through senior year. The classroom language is English, so all their courses are taught in English, but they do offer some beginning and intermediate Italian language courses. They are not required, but they are an option. But besides that, all of the courses are going to be taught in English. The academic strengths, there's a variety of subjects and topics that they cover through their courses. Some strengths, business, journalism, communication arts, sociology, history, psychology, and more. I find that students really like to take the kind of culture-focused courses in this program. They tend to be really popular. So for example, they have courses like culture and cuisine in Italy, where you get to learn about Italian cuisine, and I think they also do some like food tasting things, which tends to be pretty popular. They also have like exploring Rome, the birthplace of the modern museum, and so then you'll go and visit some museums in Italy and Rome. Um, they also have other courses where you might visit some architectural sites or historical monuments and things like that. So some of these more cultural courses, you're really getting to go into the city, kind of having these field trips and like walking around and observing things like very hands-on. So those tend to be really popular too, but they do offer a lot of other courses as well. And then as far as housing, it is provided, so CIEE will arrange the housing, and they kind of go through the placement process with students. You can do apartments, host families, or residence halls. All of them are furnished. One thing that I like to mention early on to students is you might have a longer commute than you're used to get to the study center where your classes are held. So typically you can expect an hour of commuting to get to your classes. All the housing is kind of spread throughout the city within this like 60-minute radius to get to your classes. So that might be new for some students. So I like to just mention that up front. Just another thing about the general experience of the program. So as I mentioned, the study center aspect, your classes are going to be held at a study center, which means it's not a formal university. You're not going to be taking classes with local Italian students and things like that. It's really a study center for students that are studying abroad from other American universities. So you'll take classes with other students from UW-Madison, also other students from other American universities, and that's kind of how it's set up. And one quick fun fact about Rome, it took 11 years to build the Colosseum underground metro station due to all of the archaeological remains that they found during the process. So I just think that's cool, a cool nod to how much history is in Rome. All right, next slide, please.
All right, so the Santa Reparata International School of Art program. This is one of the programs that I get most excited about because I studied abroad in Florence myself when I was a student. This is a provider program, so you'll be taking courses with other study abroad students and maybe even some students from UW-Madison. There's a lot of support for study abroad students on provider programs like this one. Students will take 12 to 16 credits on the semester program, and in the summer, students can choose between doing one summer session for 3 to 6 credits or both summer sessions for 9 to 12 credits. There are not any required courses on the program, and you will be able to pick and choose all of your courses from Sarissa's course offerings. This program offers a variety of durations, including fall, spring, academic year, and then those summer sessions. Definitely review the QR code at the bottom for a link to the program page to see if you're eligible for the program. To be eligible, students must have at least a 2.5 cumulative GPA and maintain good academic and disciplinary standing and be currently enrolled UW-Madison students. This program is not expected to be a limited capacity program, so we're looking for students who are meeting or exceeding the eligibility criteria and who have an interest in this specific program. Also, courses are taught in English on the program unless you enroll in an Italian language course. I do also want to point out that this program is a really good fit for a variety of majors, not just art students. I know with the art being in the title, sometimes people just think it's for students who want to take art studio courses, which they do have a lot of those offerings. But CERESA regularly offers courses in psychology, marketing, consumer science, history, art history, and other areas, of course. CERESA organizes housing in shared apartments with other students studying at CERESA. And then the application for spring 2027 is open now. So if you're interested, apply by September 4th. Okay, next slide.
Alrighty. So sticking with the Florence trend, we will now talk about CET Florence, which is the program that I did. I did the summer session. CET, really anytime that you're seeing those like 3, 4, 5 letter acronyms at the start of a program title, that cues you into the fact that it's provider. So similar to a lot of the other ones that we've covered. This program is run in the fall and summer. The summer session, for me, it was about 6-ish weeks, and I believe that's still how it is run today. When I did this program, I took a similar to like what Emily was talking about for the Rome program, like a culture, cuisine, type of course in Florence, which is really awesome. And then I also took a Renaissance art history course. I think it's safe to say for probably all programs in our office, especially these Italy programs, but CET Florence I felt did a really great job of getting us like outside of the classroom. For our sessions, I feel like I really rarely did like a class like in a lecture form listening to the professor talking. We really spent a lot of time in markets for like the culture and food class. I think for my art history class, we got into every single museum in Florence for free. So certainly a really big benefit of a program like this. All classes are taught in English, again, with the option to take an Italian language course, which I certainly will always recommend that students do. This program has a wide variety of academic offerings as well, and housing is provided. They will allow you to like request roommates if that is something that you wish. Otherwise, they'll place you in an apartment unless you choose a host family. But thinking back to my apartment, I think my apartment was maybe like a 15-ish minute walk to the study center. I think for Italy in general, get ready for a lot of walking. I think that's just something that kind of comes with being in Italy. But the next program really goes hand in hand with this. It is UW in Florence. So while this is a UW signature program, we work with CET to put this program on. So the UW signature aspect of it is that a UW-Madison professor goes along with the program. So for like this upcoming spring, it's a professor from the Italian department. He's teaching 2 courses. I believe it's like an Italian film course and then an Italian literature course. You'll be required to take at least one of those offerings from that professor, and there will just be other UW-Madison students in those classes. And then the rest of your courses you will take through CET's elective offerings with other students from UW, most likely, as well as other students from US universities who are also studying abroad. This program is run in the spring only. So if you're interested in what CET is offering, but not in the spring, then you can do CET Florence in the summer or fall. Again, everything's taught in English. The academics I mostly talked about, and again, housing is provided just like CET Florence. It is a limited capacity program. What that means is we typically have to turn some amount of students away from the program each semester. With that being said, it has an earlier deadline than CERESA. So if you're dead set on Florence, and you apply to UW in Florence, you aren't accepted, you would still then be able to apply to CERESA, which is not limited capacity. So know that you have options there, but UW in Florence has that earlier deadline for a reason.
All right, so those are our list of programs that we are going to talk about today, and now we'll just move on to some other things to consider and some other next steps for you. So just some general things about Italy here on this slide, just showing what kind of power adapters you will need to get if you study in Italy. So you can see on the screen type C, F, and L. You'll also have to think about the voltage in Italy. So sometimes if you use certain devices, for example, like a hair dryer or like I just think of like hair styling tools and things like that. A lot of times these don't work in Italy, so you either might need to buy something new once you get there or get a power converter to use some of your things. So those are just some things to think about when you're thinking about what to bring and what you might need to be prepared for. On the other side of the slide, just some notes about kind of the fashion culture in Italy. You might notice that Italians tend to dress a little bit more polished than we might be used to here in the US on a college campus. So, that's just something to consider if you would like to blend in more. You might need to do some research on some other types of clothes to bring. And you can find a lot of information about that on the internet online too. And then finally, a big piece of advice that we will share is try not to overpack. Remember that you can get pretty much everything you need when you get there, in a lot of cases. So think about that while you're packing. We recommend bringing one like checked suitcase and one carry-on. This depends on your program. If you're doing a summer program, maybe you'll need a bit less. If you're going to be there longer, maybe you'll need a bit more. But a lot of times, like I can say for CIEE Rome, they will pick you up from the airport and there is limited space in the vehicle that they pick you up in. So if you come with like 3 giant suitcases, that's going to be a bit of a problem. So you'll receive information about this from program providers in the pre-departure process as well, but just something to think about while you're considering and getting ready to pack and go. All right, next slide, please. And then what are some next steps? So identifying your goals, of course, is a very good place to start. So you can think about maybe what type of program resonates the most with you. Do you like the provider model? Do you like the UW-in model where you'll be with like a cohort of students and a UW professor, or something else? Think about what cities you might be most interested in and things like that. You can meet with your advisors, meaning your study abroad advisors, people from our office, from the other study abroad offices at UW-Madison to discuss programs and what might interest you most there. And you can also meet with your academic advisor to discuss things like your degree progress, what maybe like if there's certain courses you should plan to take on campus, at a certain point, maybe what semesters would be best for you to go abroad, things like that. They can help you with planning. Consider your budget. Of course, some programs are more expensive and some are less, so you can think about what works best for you there. And along with that, thinking about financial aid and scholarships. Many programs you can use financial aid for, so that's something to consider as well. And there are a lot of scholarships to apply for, both through UW-Madison as well as through some of our providers. So that's something to think about early on, and making sure you're meeting the scholarship application deadlines. So you can find that information on our website. It depends on the term that you're studying abroad. So I recommend looking at that early on. Another great thing to do is connecting with returned students that have already studied abroad in the programs that you're interested in. On each of our program web pages, we have this section. It's called Student Voices, and you can find basically a list of students that you can reach out to some students that are willing to chat about their experience. So that's a great thing to do, or if you just know some friends that have studied abroad before, that's a really great thing to do to get the take from the student directly on their experience. And then applying for or updating your passport. This is really important, especially for Italy. In some cases, you might also need to get a visa, a student visa to study in Italy. So it's really important that you have your passport early on so that you can start that process, the visa process, because it can be a little bit complex. So if you're thinking of studying in Italy or anywhere, we recommend getting your passport or renewing your passport if it's going to expire. You can see on the screen here, Italy requires your passport to be valid for at least 6 months after your program ends. So you might have to do some math there to ensure that your passport's going to be valid for your program. We do offer a free passport photo service in our office in the Red Gym. Currently, this is suspended just due to some repairs going on campus, but this is typically offered, so this is something you can do. You can come, you have to sign up, but you can come and get your passport photos taken. You can also do this at a place like Walgreens, for example. And then finally, apply to your program. So, Ella, were you going to talk about applications a bit here?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Emily. So I guess when do applications open? You can see here on the slide our timeline for opening applications. I guess it's just important to know that applications open at a different time of the year depending on like the duration. And so, for example, spring applications for spring 2027 programs opened in early March and are usually due in early August through October, depending on the program. Each program has a unique application deadline, which is listed on the program page on our website. So be sure to check the program page and apply for the program you're interested in by the deadline. Something I always like to remind students is that just remember that all of our applications close at 4:30 p.m. on the day of the deadline. And so you can definitely open your application now and start working on it throughout the summer, but remember to submit it by 4:30 p.m. on the day of that application deadline. And then if you're hoping to apply for spring 2027, now is a great time to mark your calendar with the application deadline of that program, and start working on your application. And of course, reach out to us if you have any questions about that specific program. All right, next slide.
All right, so that concludes the formal presentation. Thank you guys so much for attending. The email list QR code sign up is there. You'll get a lot of information about featured programs, when applications are opening, closing, etc. We are also on Instagram at IEP Study Abroad. There is a lot of really exciting photos and videos and Instagram story takeovers that are always happening there. So I highly recommend checking that out. And then our advising link is there as well. Any of us would be happy to meet with you to discuss these programs, the process, etc. You can also just see all of our advisors there for each program, so you can get help there. But yeah, we're happy to stick around for a little bit if there are any questions, if you want to pop them into the chat. Otherwise, yeah, definitely don't hesitate to reach out.
I can answer this question. I see a question in the chat. It says, for the UW and Florence program, when should applicants find out if they got in or not? So I guess generally for all of our programs, we say on our website that it can take 4 to 6 weeks for applications to be reviewed and for students to hear back about their applications. For the UW and Florence program, we set that deadline in early August with the knowledge that other programs have applications due in, early September or later. And so we try to, review those applications quickly and let students know a little early for that program. So we just encourage you to, if that's your first choice program, to have a backup program in mind already, so that, you know what you want to apply to if you're unable to be accepted very quickly. Okay, next question we have, if a program like Florence is limited capacity, how does UW choose? So Yes, limited capacity programs. What we unfortunately just aren't able to, accommodate everybody who's interested in the program just because sometimes we have like a limited number of space on the program. But on the UW in Florence program page, we do link in, the criteria we use to evaluate applications. And so, we're looking for students who, meet or exceed the eligibility requirements on the program page. We're taking into account all of the eligibility criteria and how much students exceed those eligibility criteria, as well as the application essays. And so I guess I would invite you to review those criteria a little bit more if you're interested in like what specifically we use. But I hope that answers your question.
Maybe Ramona or Emily, do you want to take the program cancellation question?
Yeah, I can take it, and then Emily, you can jump in if I miss anything. So the question is, if we sign up, then fail to make enough money for the program, then can we drop out, and will there be a fee? The short answer is that it depends. Each program we work with an on-site partner, and they kind of have a schedule of cancellation timelines. And so, what I would recommend is that you visit for any program that you're interested in under the cost tab, cost and fee. What's it called? I'm drawing a blank.
I
Cost
think it's
tab.
cost and funding. Cost and
Cost and
funding.
funding, there you go. Cost and funding tab. There's a lot of details there. Not only is there the cost of the program that you're interested in, a very detailed cost breakdown that includes all the inclusions of the program in addition to like the additional non-included items that you need to think about. But there's also like a billing and fee schedule for each of our programs. So it really kind of depends on the program that you're looking at because it was sort of as a sliding, moving schedule depending on the program. So the short answer is that yes, potentially depending on when you withdraw, but not necessarily. So it depends on the program.
And I would just add that there's also an acceptance deposit. I think it's like $300. So this has to be paid at the time that you confirm your participation, which is typically like a couple weeks after you find out about your acceptance. Is that right, Ella? Like something like that, a couple weeks after you're accepted is typically when that's due, and that is non-refundable.
Yeah, so once you're accepted into any study abroad program, you have 2 weeks to sit with like the confirmed program fee, and like the program dates. And so, yes, like Emily mentioned, one of those tasks is a $300 IAP acceptance deposit. And then there's some other tasks as well that you'll complete, like to say, like, yes, I would like to go on this program and commit to it.
Awesome. Yeah, it looks like there was one question in like the Q&A section as well, that's asking about the Rome program. I can say that for CIE Rome, it is not limited capacity. Certainly, it is never a 100% like you're automatically into a program, but certainly like as long as you're meeting the eligibility requirements and are able to say like why you're interested in this program, prove that you have done your research onto the program. Certainly, we don't typically have to turn students away from this program so long as they're doing those things. But yeah, so with that being said, you will notice that like that program will likely have like a later deadline than UW and Florence, for example, because we're not expecting students to have to apply to a backup program. Yeah, I think we answered all of the questions that are there now, but again, happy to stick around if there's anything else that comes up. Okay, seeing people leaving, so I'm assuming there's nothing else, but I'll talk slowly in case anybody's typing. But yeah, definitely don't hesitate to just reach out to our office with any other questions. And thank you guys so much for attending.
Thanks, everyone. Oh, I guess we're hopping off. Bye, Ella.